we got a little mini update today and a little bit of a teaser of some of the things we're going to get in season 2. They adjusted the combat axe, buffed it a little bit, won't really impact anything, modified frag grenade, whatever. But the thing that they've really committed to and continued to do with the game to still keep it a little bit more fresh is they keep updating the weapon loot pool on the floor loot, and then they keep adjusting the attachments on a lot of the various weapons. So although you could pick up the same gun that was like a week or two ago, it may feel a little bit different because of the way the attachments have been set up. Contracts, they reduce spawn rates of recon slightly by 10% per each mode. Most wanted, reduce the reduction after opening a box, been reduced from 12 seconds to 6 seconds. So they sped that up, and then now they've kind of reverted it slower again. So weapon balance. Here's the thing that was kind of like one of the biggest problems with the past 2 or 3 years in terms of weapon balancing. They really didn't do much throughout the year. We had a stagnant meta, which I think right now there's still tons of room for improvement. But I think they've already kind of acknowledged some of the issues, and they at least show that they grasp what the issues are to begin with, versus it felt like for the past couple years it was just like they don't hear it, they don't see it, they don't know what the hell they're doing. And part of it is they didn't really have even some autonomy or control over setting up the metas to begin with, because they had to go through the multiplayer, and the multiplayer guys are just like, nope. It says we increase bullet velocity on some Black Ops 7 rifles to open up more interesting build paths. This is one of the things that I mentioned in the previous loadout video, where I go, well, you're kind of forced to use these attachments because you want to hit at least around 1,000 bullet velocity, for example. Maybe you can get away with less on smaller maps, but in general, at least 1,000. And by upping the bullet velocity, you can maybe remove the ammo type that would have been for bullet velocity, and maybe put on a different attachment for recoil or range or something else. Maybe you want an optic. It gives you a little bit more flexibility in the build if you want to build it out. Or if you just want even more bullet velocity, you can kind of keep the build that kind of gears towards that, and you'll have even more bullet velocity, hopefully approaching like hit scan, right, to a certain extent. So AK gets a little bit of a change here, 5 meter buff to the range. Not a huge deal there, but it gets some modifications to its weapon damage here. So these will be updated today on the spreadsheet. I'll go through each one. And then you guys will get like a peek on what is usable and good, those types of things right off the rip. I've been pretty up to date on all the changes that have pretty much happened so far. If there are any things on the spreadsheet where you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense, point it out in the comments, and then I'll go ahead and try and make an adjustment or retest it to double check. Maybe you could be wrong, maybe I could be wrong. We could figure that out. So bullet velocity, they upped it a little bit, keeping in mind that when you put on certain muzzles, barrels, and the ammo type stuff, it's multiplicative. So even though it's only a 15 increase here, realistically, when you add the other barrel, it could be 15 here, plus an additional 20 on the other side. So a net, 35 there. They modified the rate of fire, which is a little bit odd since that's such a marginal difference. 8 RPM. Maybe that doesn't allow it to reset. I don't know. But we'll go ahead and have to check that out. Another thing they did that we really haven't touched much on is some of the weapons in multiplayer actually have different different rate of fires than the multiplayer version of them. It's been close to top tier performance, but held back by recoil and punishing damage profile. These changes make it more forgiving and reward players. So that's good. I like the AK before just because I'm a fan of the weapon, but it's nice to see that a little bit of buff there. Mirage gets a little bit of a nerf. This one's kind of been sitting at the top for a bit. One of the few weapons that actually have level 250 because I enjoyed using it quite a bit. The Mirage has been outperforming at mid-range. The change reins it in effectiveness, creating more room for other assault rifles to compete. Like this note just says, like they know what's up, right? Some changes to the M15, the Maddox, the MXR. Not significant, doesn't look like, but some changes nonetheless. A little bit of damage in mid-range, and this is the combat thing we were talking about earlier. I still think this gun has a little bit shaky recoil, especially if you hold the trigger for too long. Get a little trickier at the further ranges. Still one of the better sniper supports in my opinion. Bullet velocity gets a slight increase. Recoil deviation reduced, which that kind of goes to what I was just talking about. Maverick, bullet velocity, so a lot of those just straightforward changes. But these other guns didn't get those bullet velocity. It's tied to specific attachments. So It is what it is. BO7 SMGs. Handling mobility has been improved across Black Ops 7 SMGs to open up stronger build options and let certain playstyles stand out. These changes should make both base weapons and attachments feel better to use while encouraging more diverse builds. Nice. This is one it's always doubtful because people will just go with the meta. But if the gun has a lot of recoil, some people are a little bit better skilled at controlling recoil. That's usually when there's a divergence in builds. It's like, but you still want to make sure that you have the ADS speed at a certain amount, sprint to fire, mobility. So it's kind of like you got to hit a lot more metrics with the SMG depending on your, your specific playstyle. So carbon gets a little bit of a buff just to the range, but then they reduce the recoil, which is nice. Aim down sight speed improved. Not increased, but improved. And this again, will allow it to maybe you stack another attachment to still stay at that 200 millisecond aim down sight. Sprint to fires there, movement sped up. So this gun should feel significantly better after this update. Dravik, a minor change there, but they went in and improved the ADS, made it sped up. So it looks like they took care of some of the outliers. Kogot gets a buff. Huh, damn. I didn't really think the Kogot needed a buff. It's pretty good overall. Hovered near the top SMG meta without quite breaking through. These targeted changes are intended to elevate its performance. This is a great floor loot too. I just wish it didn't always come with a 30 round mag. Well, not always, but there's so many SMGs and stuff that just 30 round mag, it's not great. NPC, this one's very good. They slowed down the rate of fire. That is a decent amount, much more than the one we saw earlier. And then they nerfed the medium range, which starts after 12 meters. Consistently outperformed other options in the slot. This adjustment reins it in. Mid-range effectiveness, TTK opening up more viable options. Nice. Razor gets a slight damage buff. Damn, they went and buffed the heck out of this thing. Everything's an improvement. Razor should feel better. I guess we'll find out. We want the Razor to feel like a snappy firing SMG that rewards accuracy. These changes support the identity while making it slightly more forgiving at mid-range. ADS speed improved on the RK. So they're kind of just speeding up some of the SMGs in general. Riding gets a buff to damage, upper torso, multiplier arm increase, lower time. Okay, so a bunch of buff there. And then the ADS speed carried over. Changes are now requires one less headshot at its maximum range to speed up the TTK. Nice. Then the Sturm Wolf didn't get a nerf. It's pretty solid overall. It's one of the better guns in the game right now. I think a big part of it is it has little to no recoil, which definitely helps at that medium range a little bit more than some of the other SMGs that we have. The Sokol, very good. They ended up nerfing the range a little bit here. Modified. Whoa. There's no way. Rate of fire decreased by like 200? Damn, they nerfed that thing. It is, yeah, that's pretty bad now. Even without testing. It's been easy to use LMG, overperforms the midline. I shouldn't have called it the meta weapon. Target fire rate reduction slightly lowers overall. I don't think that's slightly. That's crazy. That might be like, I'll have to see what that actually does to the TTK. That's crazy. M8 gets a slight buff. Bullet velocity also improved, and then some bug fixes. But like I said, that's not all. There is a little bit of a tease for the competitive side of the game. They're going to add ranked pretty early on in the season. I know some people were thinking it'd be in the mid-season. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case. It looks like it'll be shortly after launch, which usually means either the same day or in that first week. Usually, because you only get 8 weeks in a season, sometimes 7, sometimes 9. But generally, early on, you got to do it in the first 2 weeks or so. So I'm not expecting it to be much later than the first week or even the first couple days. This also goes on, will return early in season 2, bringing fast pace, high intensity, whatever. But they wanted to evolve it. So they're adding this thing called Iron Gauntlet. It's going to be like Iron Trials. So Iron Trials, how it worked versus Titanium Trials is Titanium Trials, you have way more plate health than actual health. And then in Iron Trials, you have way more actual health than plate health. You still get the normal plate health, 3 plates equals 150, but the base is usually like 350 or something like that to put you up to almost 500 HP instead of the standard 300, almost effectively doubling your overall health. Basically what they're going to do is introduce a beta version of the new mode called Iron Gauntlet, competitive experience built as an evolution of Iron Trials, designed as emphasis, skill, expression, smart positioning, and calculated engagements. Iron Gauntlet will be a large map battle royale experience with tuned features such as health, loot, and loadout rules. And those things, there's certain things cost more. The free loadout didn't drop, I believe. Loot was a little bit more sparse. Iron Gauntlet represents an important step in refining competition for traditional battle royale, as well as an opportunity for us to experiment with a fresh mode, long-term health competition in Warzone in mind. And then it says, throughout Season 2, we'll be closely monitoring player feedback. So give the feedback. Important, these are rotating modes. So from my understanding how it'll work, we'll get regular normal rank that we're used to for probably like 3 weeks to a month. And then what we'll do is we'll get Iron Gauntlet for like 2 weeks. And then we'll get 2 weeks to close out ranked or something like that. So basically they won't be existing at the same time. And Iron Gauntlet will be, since it is beta, they're going to just make it shorter bursts just to kind of get as much information as they can without having people play for 2 months to get a specific rank. So they'll go ahead and do that, which is kind of cool. And then to round off 2026 offering, later today we'll be posting an official blog detailing the brand new Warzone Resurgence series, a new circuit where the best Resurgence players will compete for the share of a massive pool, which I know there's a lot of y'all guys out there that know life Resurgence, are pretty good at Resurgence, but maybe haven't had a chance to express that skill in a meaningful way. I think this is going to be similar, hopefully, to like what Fortnite does with their little cash cups. I think it'll be similar to that. So pretty straightforward. I thought I'd close that out with that because it was just a small announcement. And then they'll have more details on that, which I think it's cool for people that are into competitive. So we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.